In April 2026, researchers confirmed what geologists had debated for decades. The Grand Canyon wasn't carved slowly. It was born in a single catastrophic flood, 6.6 million years ago, that reshaped the American West overnight. That same year, paleontologists dissolved canyon rock with acid and pulled out creatures 505 million years old. Animals so sophisticated they rewrote the timeline of complex life on Earth. Both discoveries made headlines for exactly 1 week. Then the canyon went quiet again. Because here's what those scientists cannot explain. Over 1,000 caves exist inside these walls, nearly all sealed by federal order, ancient chambers locked behind steel gates. No timeline for opening, no public justification that holds up. The same institution that published those landmark discoveries has never funded an independent excavation of a single sealed cavern. We can now fingerprint a rock crystal formed 6.6 million years ago. We still cannot tell you what's inside those caves. That's not oversight, that's a decision. What the canyon has already confirmed. 277 miles long, wider than the entire city of Los Angeles, over a mile straight down into the earth. Its walls hold 2 billion years of geological history, nearly half the age of the planet. Less than 3% of its cave systems have ever been fully explored. What's hiding in the other 97%? In April 2026, UCLA researchers and the Arizona Geological Survey analyzed zircon crystals from the Baidahachi Basin, an ancient geological depression east of the canyon. Zircon survives billions of years, holding a precise radioactive record, uranium decaying into lead tick by tick. Read that decay, and you can fingerprint exactly where a rock came from. What they found was definitive. 6.6 million years ago, the ancestral Colorado River pooled into a massive inland lake that grew until it overtopped a natural barrier called the Kaibab Arch and released a catastrophic wall of water across the entire American West. The Grand Canyon wasn't carved slowly. It was torn open in a geological instant. The second discovery reaches back even further, 505 million years. Inside the Bright Angel Formation, a layer of Cambrian rock embedded in the canyon walls, paleontologist Giovanni Massini dissolved shale samples with hydrofluoric acid and isolated over 1,500 microscopic fossils. The flagship find, Crate Draco spectatus, an extinct worm with a dual feeding system, scraping the seafloor and filtering matter from the water above. Simultaneously. A level of biological sophistication scientists believed evolved much later, found here, preserved in 3 dimensions, inside the walls tourists photograph every day. If the visible layers contain this, what's inside the sealed ones? The 1909 mystery that won't die. April 5, 1909. The Arizona Gazette publishes a report that should have changed everything. An explorer named G.E. Kincaid, navigating the Colorado River alone, spots a dark opening carved 2,000 feet above the riverbed. He climbs up, goes inside. What he finds, vast underground corridors geometrically precise, ventilation shafts, sealed chambers, mummified remains, copper tools. Statues bearing an unmistakable resemblance to Buddhist and Egyptian deities, deep in the American Southwest. The article named the Smithsonian Institution as the expedition's sponsor. Investigators dug into the claim. The Smithsonian found nothing, no records, no expedition correspondence, no artifacts. A consistent, documented denial stretching over a century. Case closed. Hoax. Move on. Except one detail refuses to disappear. The Grand Canyon's official U.S. government survey maps are filled with Egyptian names. Isis Temple, Horus Temple, Cheops Pyramid, named in the late 19th century officially as poetic descriptors of the canyon's grandeur. But why those names? In that canyon, at that specific moment in history? The Smithsonian has an answer. Not everyone believes it's the whole one. Sealed but not locked. Here's what the National Park Service will actually confirm. Over 1,000 caves inside the Grand Canyon, nearly all closed to the public. Federal permits required, rarely granted. Entire corridor systems still unmapped. The official reason: protecting fragile bat habitats, preventing a fungal disease called white nose syndrome. But here's the part they don't lead with: the caves aren't sealed with physical barriers. They're sealed with paperwork. They're not locked because you can't reach them. They're locked because you're not allowed to. Stanton's Cave, mile 31.5 of the Colorado River, sits behind a massive steel gate. Inside, the remains of a 15,000-year-old teratorn, an extinct bird with a 12-foot wingspan. Harrington mountain goat bones dated to 20,000 years ago. Ceremonial splitwig figurines, 4,000 years old. All of it locked away. None of it publicly accessible. In 2025, researchers re-examined fossil collections from that same cave, found something that had been misclassified for decades, and quietly corrected it. No public announcement. Not one restricted site has ever been opened for independent public investigation. Not one. What the tribes have always known. The canyon's 11 traditionally associated tribes, the Havasupai, the Hopi, the Navajo, have maintained for thousands of years that this is not merely a landscape. It is a threshold. And some doors, they say, were never meant to be opened from the outside. The Hopi people have a name for what lies at the bottom of this canyon: the Sipapuni. Not a metaphor, not a myth. A specific physical place near the confluence of the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers, where the boundary between the world below and the world above remains permanently, dangerously thin. To the Hopi, this is where humanity first emerged into existence. The National Park Service restricts access to this site, officially to honor tribal sovereignty. But the Hopi will tell you something else. Some doors aren't closed to protect the living from curiosity. They're closed to protect the living from what answers back. The lockdown. In April 2026, the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals made it official. The Baj Nwavjo Itakukveni ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument. Over 900,000 acres, locked from new excavation, new mining, new independent investigation. Permanently. The official reason: protect indigenous sacred sites, prevent uranium mining. Now consider the timing. New geological discoveries were rewriting the canyon's entire formation story. Half-billion-year-old fossils were emerging from sealed rock layers. Independent researchers were filing requests to access restricted cave systems. And at that exact moment, the canyon was locked down tighter than at any point in its modern history. For some, that's protection. For others, that timing feels like something else entirely. The clock is running. Strip away every theory, every sealed gate, every suppression claim. What remains is still extraordinary. Right now, scientists are mapping something inside the Grand Canyon that has never been charted in human history: a 13-year, $6 million dye tracing study. Researchers inject environmentally safe dyes into sinkholes on the North Rim, then monitor 43 springs below, tracing invisible rivers moving through limestone darkness for miles. Hidden waterways that have existed undisturbed for millions of years, flowing right now, beneath our feet. The canyon is also changing, faster than anyone predicted. The 2025 Dragon Bravo fire scorched the North Rim. Glaciers feeding the Colorado River are retreating. The ancient groundwater system supplying 4.5 million annual visitors is now under Stage 2 restrictions. If the Transcanyon waterline fails before its replacement is complete, the canyon closes, not to independent researchers, not to alternative historians, but to everyone. And whatever remains sealed inside those caverns stays sealed, perhaps permanently. The Grand Canyon was never the open book we assumed it was. Its walls are cracking, its waters are shifting, its secrets are beginning to surface. Scientists will keep drilling, keep tracing, keep cataloging, searching the rock for answers not just to our past but to our survival. But the caverns are still sealed, the gates are still locked, and somewhere beneath that silence, something is still waiting. The question is whether we find it before the canyon decides we never will.